That one, year number 4. It's a Yank on the Footy with Craig Wessels. Let's all sit back and enjoy a chat about the greatest game on the face of the earth. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 263 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels, coming to you from beautiful Sandusky, Ohio, except for my garden behind my house, which is a disaster area. In just a moment, I'll be sitting down to chat with my mate, a much better dancer than I am, Bevan Jones, the host of Legends with Bevo and one of the hardest working men in media in South Australia. Now, don't forget, ladies and gents, if you want to get your local footy club getting a shout out during an upcoming episode, make sure you reach out to me. You can find all of my links to my socials and my email and that sort of thing over at my website at yankonthefooty.com. You can leave me a message there. You can certainly shoot me an email at yankonthefooty@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm not on TikTok, and I won't be on TikTok. Not going to happen. But I love giving these shout-outs because I love learning about the geography of the game. I had a great interaction with the club from my most recent episode, 262. They shared the note that I shared with them on Messenger. It was absolutely wonderful that happened. Now, today's club of the episode, they are the Solomon Town Cats of the Spencer Gulf Football League. And the Cats were founded back in 1961, and among their alumni, this is a name I had run across before, is Mark Bickley, the two-time premiership captain, 97 and 98 of the Adelaide Crows. Now, Bickley played 53 games with the South Australian club in the Sandful and then played 272 games with the Adelaide Crows in the AFL. Now, he is a Sandful Hall of Famer as well. Now, the club, the Cats, they have 7 teams from under-9s all the way through their senior and reserve sides. The seniors have started out with 5 wins in their first 6 rounds, including this weekend's win over South Augusta, 138-59. Now, I did notice on their Facebook page that they are looking to promote a great and, as they say, cheap way to help to support the club. And I'm going to share the information that they have on their Facebook page. Please consider purchasing one or more of these tickets to win one of 3 Toyota cars. The tickets are only $5. Every ticket sold goes straight back to the club, so as it says here, it couldn't be easier and will help us out tremendously. Toyota Good for Footy raffle, and this is an amazing way to help support the club for only $5. And as it says, every ticket sold brings 100% of the profit to their club, plus you have a chance to win one of 3 Toyotas. I'm guessing I'm not eligible because if I guess if I won one, I would only be qualified to deliver the mail here in the United States because our postal vehicles are designed the way the vehicles are in Australia, with the driver's seat on the right-hand side of the vehicle. Now, as it says, this is where their amazing supporter base can really help them out. A small outlay by each member or supporter will make such a big difference to the club, and never-ending running costs involved with keeping it successful. As it says, let's get behind this fundraiser, Cats. There's over $250,000 of prizes to be won, including 3 new Toyotas. And every ticket sold comes back to the club. This is your opportunity to help your club out for minimal effort. So please help us out and grab a ticket or 2. I'm going to go ahead and interject here, or 3 or 4, through the link that they have provided on their Facebook page. And I will have their Facebook page linked on their website. Now, before we jump in, though, I do want to congratulate Tyson Weber of their 18U club. He played his first game with the A graders this past weekend. Good on you, Tyson. And I want to wish the Cats the absolute best the rest of the way in 2023. So let's go ahead and jump into my chat with Legends with Bevo host, Bevan Jones. All right, ladies and gentlemen, my guest this episode is no stranger to the podcast. He's been previously with me a couple of times back during episodes 92 and 204. We previewed the grand final in that episode. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome back Bevan Jones, the host of Legends with Bevo and a number of other things to the podcast. Bevo, how are you doing this morning, sir?
Craig, always a pleasure to come on your show, mate. Thanks for having me again for the 3rd time. That's almost gold status, isn't it? So...
I think you are. Yes, I will put the key to the executive washroom in the mail to you. You should have it in about 3.5 to 4 weeks. Okay. Of course, it's gonna take you that long to get back here to make sure the key works in the door, though. So, before we get going here, I do have to ask you one question right off the bat. Sleep's a pretty darn valuable thing, isn't it?
It certainly is. Yes. And I honestly don't understand how these ladies that have kids actually, go through the whole pregnancy thing and everything else, and just survive in life, because everyone's different. But I'm a struggler when it comes to having no sleep, Craig.
Yeah, and it's
how do you cope with it?
well, this is decaf right now, but I typically it's the just the regular coffee there. I mean, I get by usually with only about 5 hours of sleep a night anyway.
Wow.
So it's, I mean, maybe 6, but and of course, as you get older, you don't get to sleep all the way through the night. I'll tell you that, and I'll just leave that with you there. And, about another 20, 25 years, you're going to be going, yeah, I remember him telling me about this.
Yes, I have heard that as well. Yeah.
So you are almost a year into being a dad.
Yeah.
Is it everything that you thought it would be?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question to ask. Obviously, you have your challenges. Like at the moment, we've got our daughter who's going through some pains with teething and other bits and pieces. So it's just horrible to see her in pain and crying all the time. And yeah, it does get tough. But then there's so many great things about it. Seeing her smile, seeing her crawl, and happiness, and she's such a happy baby and stuff. So yeah, no, there's lots of really good things that outweigh the bad things, that's for sure. And I'll be the first to put my hand up and say that it wasn't actually my decision to want to have kids. Like, I was happy not to, but my wife really wanted to. So, I was, of course, happy wife, happy life. But I must admit now we've had a little Evie, I'll probably adore her as much as my wife does. So
I'm sure you will. And I can see where the bruising is there, where she has you wrapped around her little finger. Okay. I can just tell by your expression that is the case. So it's that's awesome.
Yes.
And you just had your 3rd wedding anniversary here recently as well. So congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's
a few
time
weeks
short
ago.
I was flied. Time short I was flied, doesn't it? So
yes. I actually, it's on my old ring. It's we got married in 1995, so it's coming up on 28 years. For my wife and I at the end of this year. Of course, I remind her that whenever she gives me a hard time about something, I remind her. I said, "Well, technically, I've been married 31 years. You've only been married 28." Which is then when she tells me, maybe you should just go to Australia. Like through that wall.
We'll happily have you. And I'll tell you what, I'll put this down. What we're now, the 8th of May, 2023, Craigo. When you come to Australia and you come to Adelaide, the first thing we'll organise is for you to come on Legends of Bevo in my studio in Pod Booth in Adelaide. How's
absolutely.
that sound?
I absolutely would love to do that. I would.
So
I'd
I can return the favour. So.
Love to see the studio. Well, where I am, there's not enough room for anybody else in here. So if anybody is around here and I'm going to be doing an interview, we're going to have to find another place, because, like I said, I'm in a closet. I am, there's the door. There's not enough room for 2 people in here. So
you got to take some photos of this setup, mate. It's amazing.
Oh, it works well. I mean, I've got I've got the Cats Indigenous flag hanging over the wall here. I've got a couple jumpers, a half dozen scarves, my Nakaya Cockatoo pin, which he can't get a game with Brisbane now, but I still have the pin there. But yeah, I have my up there with the Vegemite jars. I have my headband from Catman that he sent me. That Troy West sent me, that used to be part of his costume that he wore to the games. So
that's awesome.
I have it is all cat stuff. I mean, there's posters all over in here, but plus my classroom's that way as well too. I mean, I've got a couple flags and a couple team posters there. I mean, I've got the 2017 team poster, and it's and the 2022 one from the premiership one hanging right underneath it. And I have to tell you, I'm the one major difference that I see is there's looking at Zach Guthrie from the Cats, who in 2017 looked like, in the 2017 photo, that if you asked him the question, he'd say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be starting puberty any day now." And in 2022, he's a man. He is an absolute man right now. His name gets written in ink on the board on the magnet now. It's not in pencil anymore. It is in ink. That young man is locked in a spot in that defensive structure there. So,
yes, he's done really well.
Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit about your club, Port Adelaide, as well. But you have, since the last time we spoke, you have branched out into a number of different things. And I is it safe to say that, and again, this is me saying this from afar, but from what I've seen, you've got to be one of the hardest working people in media in South Australia right now, with as many different irons that you have in the fire.
That's very kind. Actually, it's funny. My friends and I had a joke about that the other night, Craig, and I think including the things I do that's voluntary, which is a couple of radio shows, I've got about 11 jobs at the moment, believe it or not. So
wow.
Yeah, so it does keep me pretty busy, and yeah, I'm very lucky to have an understanding wife, that's for sure.
Well, and you had you posted online, and I have the quote here. Lived an absolute dream tonight. Got to host the Port Adelaide Club Sandful aftermatch presentations and interview the coach, Coach Goldsack, and a couple of players, Nick Moore and Jake. Is it Piscini?
Yeah, spot on. Yeah,
okay.
That's right.
Piscini. Okay, so you were filling in. Are you filling in, or have you replaced Barry Curtin?
That's a very good question. It came out of nowhere, actually, and I must admit, I was supposed to. It was a bit of a hard decision I had to make, because I was supposed to be starting with the Eagles Sandful Club last weekend. And but then, when not only do you get an opportunity to work at an AFL club, but a club you back for your whole life, it's sort of a no-brainer, isn't it? So so unfortunately, I had to say no to the Eagles at the last minute, which is a bit of a shame. Certainly try to help them get someone else, of course. And luckily they had a replacement ready to go. But then Port Adelaide, though, the team you back for your whole life, like I mentioned, the amount of opportunities being an AFL club, it was just a no-brainer, really. And you're right, last Saturday night was just absolutely unbelievable. I'm still pinching myself that, I got to stand on the stage and interview a guy like Tyson, who's a premiership player with Collingwood, and, a really nice guy. And then a couple of young guns as well from the Magpies, one of which, Jake Piscini, I reckon won't be far away from making his debut as well for the Power. So
okay. So yeah, I guess the follow-up here, if it was the Crows that had called for their Sandful side, would you be doing the Eagles games?
I still think I'd say yes, because again, just being an AFL club, there's just so many more opportunities than there are, with the smaller Sandful clubs. Yeah. So yeah, I think I would say yes to the Crows as well, even though they are the arch rivals, of course. But I think these days you see it in the AFL as well. Nathan Bassett played several games for the Adelaide Crows and is now part of the Port Adelaide coaching list. And, like Matty Nix was at Port previously. Darren Burgess was Port's fitness trainer when they won the premiership back in 2004, I believe from memory. So he was there for a number of years as well. So yeah, it's one of those things where you just take the opportunities when you can nowadays.
Yeah, I did notice that you've been calling SANFLW games as well, but then you had one that you actually got to call at the Adelaide Oval recently, which was, if I remember correctly, it was a game that I think, wasn't it military veterans that were playing in that one?
Yeah, good memory. Yeah, so it was actually the Australian Defence Force versus a combined emergency services team from around Australia. So like your fireys, police, ambos, what have you. So yeah, that was a very interesting experience, because number one, I only got the team sheets on the Friday night. Number two, I actually didn't have a co-commentator. The person that I was supposed to call with pulled out at the last minute. And then, so I didn't really know who the players were and stuff. And then the other thing was that made it very interesting was I thought the scoreboard was going to be working, but there was no scoreboard working either. So I had to keep track of the scoreboard the old school way on a bit of paper and with paper and pen, Craigo. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience, that's for sure.
So the gentleman that was supposed to work with you, had he gone and taken the gig with the Eagles instead? Is that what happened?
No, it was a few weeks before that. So yeah, maybe you heard that he was going to be calling with me, so I just decided to pull the pin. But yeah. Yeah, no, it was definitely, it was a fun experience, but I'll tell you what, there's nothing tougher than calling a game by yourself when you really don't know who the players are.
Yeah, I mean, well, and as you said, you got the lists late. Now, were you calling it for radio? or for?
It was just on live stream.
Okay, okay. So
yeah,
you were doing like the play-by-play on video for video then.
exactly right. Yes, which
And
it makes a little bit easier because people can obviously see what's happening with the action.
right,
So there's
right.
a bit of a difference between calling a radio call and a TV call. When you're calling a radio call, you've really got to call every single thing that's happening. And this is the same with basketball as well. Because when I call basketball, I call a video live stream, play by play. But when you're actually calling radio, yeah, you've got to say where the ball is, and you've got to be a lot more concise. Whereas when people are watching it, you can be a little bit. You don't have to say as much, if that kind of makes sense.
No, it makes sense because on radio when they're calling a game, it's almost like it's like tag team wrestling. Because you got somebody who's calling for about 5 minutes, and then they just kind of tap the guy next to him, and they go catch their breath, and then the next person just jumps right in and picks up on the action. But so I guess if you were doing it on radio, you'd still be using an oxygen mask right now, I think, even though it had been a couple of weeks ago that you did that, because that would have been a nightmare. Not to mention also having to keep score, having to keep track of the score yourself. I mean and as you said, when you're watching Port Adelaide play, or you recognize when you see number 2, Sam Powell Pepper, Charlie, what Charlie Dixon looks like. Okay,
exactly.
You see that number 4, that's Todd Marshall. You're not. But as you said, these were people who were putting on jumpers with numbers that there was no connection or correlation to them. You couldn't say, well, that guy drives one hell of a fire truck, but I couldn't tell you who he is. But it's and that guy right there, does artillery, and from that end of the ground, he could probably take out the interior goalpost with one shell. But I don't know his name. But it's that had to be a tough gig for you. That had to be.
It was extremely tough, yeah. And since then, I have called Sanford W a couple of times, and it's been a heck of a lot easier, not only having a commentator, but knowing a lot more who the players were. But yeah, having said that, though, one day the dream is still to call an AFL game, and yeah, it would be so much easier calling an AFL game because, like you said, you simply know the players, and player identification is actually really tough because when you're trying to call a game of footy and you're looking down at your list because you don't know who the players are, you kind of miss the play.
You have to find the ball again.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas if you actually know who the players are, you can just, like you said, you can just look at the play and know who it is and go, Charlie Dixon's, banging inside 50 and he's found Todd Marshall alone in the pocket who'll go back and have a shot from 30 metres out. It's a piece of cake, isn't it? So much easier.
Yeah, I mean, it's, because I've been, I'm the public address announcer. I've been doing that for gridiron football and for soccer now. This will be my 15th year doing that at the high school where I teach.
Yes, I'm saying. It's awesome.
So, it's been and that's one of those things where it's less is more. I mean, I'm not there to tell people. I'm there to say, okay, in our case, Logan Lesch's pass complete to Braylon Collier for a pickup of 25 yards and a Pirate first down, and we, they don't. I'm not there to do anything else. I'm not there to say, "Well, look at him go." Here, you look at. I'm not there to be a cheerleader. It's not. It's a less is more kind of thing when it comes to that. So,
mate, that just sounded so pro.
Looking at your show, and I don't want to. I've listened to several episodes here recently. And I reached out to you, and I don't want to get into too many specifics about why I reached out to you about this particular episode here anyway, because I already did, in a discussion, but I wanted to, tell you how much I appreciated the discussion that you had with Mark Ryan, as he calls himself, the beautiful Bogan. I think if you haven't listened to that episode, there's some people that probably could get a great deal from listening to that episode. It was, it was funny in many cases, but then there was also a very sobering, serious aspect to that.
Thank you. That's very kind, mate.
Yeah, it was a very powerful episode, and I don't know what to, I don't want to, like I said, I want to dig into it anymore because I want people to listen to it, but I'm glad I listened.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's really kind. And, we've spoken about this before, Craig, and yeah, Legends of Bevo, it's been going for over 5 years now, and there's been times where I think to myself, oh, this is so much work, and is it really worth it? But then when you get people like yourself reaching out, and again, I thank you so much for that, and other people as well that just reach out and say they love what I do, it kind of makes you want to keep going with it, and it's really nice. I don't do the episodes, for that purpose, but obviously it does make a big difference when people say they enjoy the interviews, and yeah, because you never know, you don't always hear feedback from people, so you never know how many people actually watch and things like that. But it is really nice when you hear that it's making a difference like that. So and Mark is he's a funny man, but he's had a really tough upbringing, and I don't want to sort of go into my own situation, but we all have challenges in life, and I had a really tough time in high school and got bullied quite a bit, but that's the way life goes sometimes, and you are the person you are today, aren't you? And
yes, absolutely. Well, and I was listening earlier tonight to your discussion with Lawrence Mooney as well, which was I think his Malcolm Turnbull impression was pretty good.
Oh, phenomenal!
Yeah. I had my attempt at a Bill Clinton imitation during my last episode that came out, because we went off. I was on with Kim Harris and Mick Aussie, who lives up in Edmonton now, but is from the Adelaide area. And we were talking about the Giants game being played in Canberra this weekend. He was referring to it as Monica Lewinsky Stadium, which yeah. But it was a
no problems.
Yeah, I was gonna get into it, a number of the other things that you are doing as well, because you're working with the NBL 1. And what's the difference between the NBL and the NBL 1, if I may ask? Because you're also announcing for that as well.
Yeah, sure. So the NBL 1 central competition, which I do commentary for, is a state competition. It's the league underneath the NBL. And so what happened previously, so there was just a league called the Premier League, which is, again, it's a league basically for teams or players that are trying to push the spot in the NBL. So I've actually got quite a few players that are playing in the NBL 1 Central at the moment that play, with the Adelaide 36ers or part of the development squads and what have you. So it's a really great league that keeps on growing every year. And a couple of years ago, they decided to make a decision to basically make it one NBL 1 Australia League. So previously it wasn't like that. So like I mentioned, it was like just statewide state leagues, like the Premier League in SA, and then Victoria would have their own Premier Leagues or whatever, and that sort of thing, which is still the case. But now they're all under basically one NBL banner. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. So they're playing clubs that are in Perth and Melbourne. So they're traveling across the country then, or they're just staying in SA?
Just staying just in SA, or staying within their own states.
Okay.
Now, having said that, though, last year they did have a competition. Interesting you asked that. They did actually have, for the first time, a national competition. So what happened is that all the teams, so the men's and women's teams that won the championship in the NBL 1 Central competition in South Australia, played in a national competition against all the other states around Australia that won their specific competitions. So like there was the NBL West, and does that kind of make NBL 1 North? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yes. So it's a great competition, and they've now got one game every week for the men's and women's for each club on KO. So it's sort of shown around Australia. And actually, you and your listeners will find this story quite interesting. The other day, for the very first time, I did some court announcing for the Woodville Warriors Basketball Club, which is a team that played off in last year's grand final. So they're a very good team. And you wouldn't believe it's Anzac Day. So huge crowd is on KO going around Australia, go to play the national anthem in the last post, and the PA system completely craps itself and just would not play.
Oh, man.
So I know, it's like, this is my luck, isn't it? So, that was rather embarrassing, but thankfully everyone was pretty understanding. You had a few people that made complaints, but you get that. And I just jumped on the mic and said, we'll play it for the men's game, and ended up being okay, but the women's game we weren't able to. So, yeah, luckily there was a second game that we could play it for, so it all worked out in the end. But that's just life. That's how it goes sometimes.
Oh yeah, it does. Oh, I've had things like that happen before. Our sound system at our stadium has gone down before. I know exactly what I know exactly what you're talking about there. So, you're also doing like a radio show called the Hoopsters Show with regards to the MBL1, and I noticed that you're doing it through something called Radio Italia, and I'm trying to figure out how that connection came about.
Yeah, so I'm doing a couple of shows on Radio Italia now. I do a weekly AFL rap show as well, which is on tonight here in SA. So that's every Monday night from 5 to 6 p.m. And that's a lot of fun where we just talk about the latest topics in the AFL and what have you. And yeah, like you just correctly said, the Hoopsters is on every Wednesday night in Adelaide from 7 till 8 p.m. And yes, it's great. Community radio is awesome because it gives you that opportunity to develop your skills. And it's really tough to get into commercial radio here in South Australia because it's only a small country town, really. So by being on community radio, you get a lot of opportunities to keep on developing your skills and maybe one day I might get back into commercial radio from there. So it's really great from that perspective.
Well, it got you noticed by Port Adelaide, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's helped, and it's all about connections, as you know, Craig. You've made so many connections over the years with your podcast. And by the way, congratulations for getting a mention on Whately last Monday morning. That's amazing.
I'm still shocked by that. I'm convinced that he knows exactly who I am and listens to the show all the time because of that 3-letter yep that he said when Shannon Gill gave me a shout out there, which may not be the case, but I'm going to go ahead and run with that. So
yeah, I'm sure he's heard of your stuff, and yeah, it's so he should, because you do such a great podcast and such an awesome job. And like I mentioned to you publicly on social media, I don't know how you sleep because you're just so passionate and you're just constantly putting up episodes. It's amazing.
Well, I did sleep last night. I didn't watch the Port game until this morning because that was an 11 o'clock in the evening start here, which was that's a great time for a game to start. But I had been yesterday. I told you I'd walked about about 10 kilometers today. I walked about 8 kilometers yesterday and had only gotten about 3 hours of sleep the previous night because I stayed up and watched the Cats game and then watched whoever was on after that and only got a few hours of sleep. And I was worn out. I knew if I sat down to watch the Port game, I was going to probably fall asleep in the first quarter. So I just stayed off of social media, got up and watched it at about 5 o'clock in the morning and went from
it's good game of footy.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was. And then I watched Melbourne and Gold Coast after that, which was a great game. That was a fantastic game. Yeah. So
so a few rippers this round for sure.
Speaking of Port Adelaide, since you were at this game, and I wanted to give out a shout to another gentleman who's in my hemisphere, who's a footy fan. He happens to be a Port supporter from Brazil, and his handle on Twitter is Gremio Power, Gremio Power. Give him a follow over there. But he posted on his Twitter page this morning after the Port game, and you were at the game, so I'll go ahead and let you analyze this quote. So I told him I was going to mention this one. He said, "Credit where credit is due. Port Adelaide's strategy of deliberately kicking behinds to avoid losing the center clearances was brilliant. It took away Essendon's main forward threat and led us to victory."
I'm going to jump on Twitter after this chat and retweet that. That is amazing. That's actually brilliant.
I thought it was brilliant. The hashtags on there. He's got hashtag We Are Port Adelaide, hashtag Hinkley Ball, hashtag sarcasm. It was.
That's a great comment.
I thought that was, if that one does not end up showing up on one of the weekly shows on Fox Footy this week, I'm going to be sadly disappointed.
Oh, great.
Because I think that was brilliant. But yeah, I really just thought that was absolutely hilarious when I read that. But so I know that there were many, many Port Adelaide supporters who were less than enamored with the job Ken Inkley has done recently.
Yes.
In your mind, is he allowed to go buy green bananas now?
It's actually a really good question. And one of my recent guests, Warren Tredrea, a Port Adelaide legend, came out and was pretty vocal and saying that that in his words, untenable were the words that he used about Hinkley's future, and that was after Port had lost to Collingwood and then lost the showdown. And Port was 1 and 2 and not going too well, and probably pretty fair when you consider where they're at, and losing that showdown. That rivalry between Port and the Crows is pretty strong,
right?
And at that stage, look at the Crows now; they're playing really good footy, and credit to them with their turnarounds. But yeah, at the time, I think he was kind of in his rights to say what he said, but certainly has been proved wrong since that time. And it's a credit to Ken Hinkley and the coaching staff, because the turnaround has been unbelievable. And to win 5 in a row, I certainly didn't see it coming. I thought we were in deep trouble after the Crows game, Craig. I thought, here we go, it's going to be another long season. But yeah, they've been absolutely brilliant. And I think changing things up has been something that's probably been a turnaround. Obviously, Ken now coaching on the sidelines really seems to have worked well. And putting Bevan Jones, firstly they dropped him and made him the sub, which a lot of clubs seem to be doing this year. Like we saw it yesterday with Collingwood. They dropped Ginnivan and then made him the sub, and he came on and had an impact. So the same kind of things happened for Bevan Jones. I don't know if you recall the game against the Sydney Swans where DBJ came on as a sub and made such an impact playing up forward. And since then, he's kept his spot every week and, kicks a couple of goals yesterday again. Most weeks he's making a contribution and kicking goals and doing a really good job. So it seems to be a masterstroke by Kenny, or I don't know, whoever it was that made that decision, but it certainly has worked really well. And putting Dylan Williams in as well, young guy who was previously a forward, now they've made him a backman and he's playing some terrific footy. So, and again, like bringing in Bryn Teakle as well, he just competes, makes the contest, and Scott Lyson, unfortunately, love him, but he looks like he was really struggling and with injury and what have you. So there's been a few changes there that Port's made, some gutsy ones, but it seems to be working really well. And in answer to your question, probably I was a little bit nervous about where Port was at after that showdown loss, but they've been superb since then, and it's a credit to Ken and all the players and everyone involved.
Right, and I'll tell you, the person I have, and of course my pick for the Coleman this year, I don't think is going to get it, but Todd Marshall was my pick for the Coleman this year. I don't think he's going to get, but I'll tell you the story that I'm so thrilled to see. I'm Jeremy Finlayson play as well as he is this year. I mean, I forgot to
mention him.
As well as he is playing, I cannot imagine what is. I guess maybe just footy is where he gets to just take his mind off of things for just a couple of hours before he has to refocus on other stuff. And it's just. Does the league? I know there's the Brownlow, I know there's the Coleman Award, but do they have any kind of an award that is given out to, like, in the NFL they give out like the Walter Payton Man of the Year, which is like like the most inspiring story, or the person who does the most for the community, that for like the community that they play their games and that sort of thing. Does the AFL have anything like that?
They have like the most courageous award.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about. Yeah, because I'm thinking if they have not already engraved that trophy or that medal with his name on it yet, they need to get moving on that and just get it done tomorrow.
Agree. It's phenomenal what he's going through at the moment, and those people that are just listening are wondering what's going on. So Jeremy's recent wife, congratulations, they recently got married, has been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she's so young too. It's just horrible. And
right.
It's not looking too good. The cancer's gone all through her body now, so they're saying it might only be a matter of months before she passes, and it's just absolutely tragic. But the way he's playing, you so correctly mentioned, Craig, is just a credit to him.
Yes,
to be going through what he is and playing the footy he is, it's just unbelievable, really, isn't it?
I mean, so because you could just as easily understand if he said, you know what, I need to step away from this for the time being. And again, I don't know the inner dynamics, but I have this, and I could be completely wrong on this, and maybe I shouldn't even be saying this, but I have this feeling that she is, more than given her blessing for him to go out there and just do it.
Yeah,
and just
exactly.
Go out and have a great year.
Yeah,
because I think she wants to see. I think I can safely say she probably wants to see him being successful out there as well.
Yeah, wouldn't it be incredible? I know you want to go back to back with your Cats, but wouldn't it be incredible for Port to win the flag this year?
That would be be an awesome story. Yes, that would.
Yeah.
Well, for that reason, but then also kind of a redemption for Ken Hinkley.
Exactly.
And I did see that just this past week where the league was a little concerned about him coaching from the sideline.
Oh,
That they were, that they didn't like the fact that he was up out of his seat. It's like, we'd really like you to stay seated when you're coaching and such. And I watch, Simon Goodwin and, everybody and their brother that's down there on their bench coaching from there, that's up and around and such. And supposedly he was giving the umpires a bit of a hard time from the bench.
oh,
I'm sorry. And I made a comment. I said, that is this the AFL wanting to just be able to have the senior coach up in the coach's box like a goldfish, where they can come tap on the glass with the camera every once in a while just to see the reaction up there? I mean, I'm sorry.
yeah.
The senior coach, whoever they happen to be, needs to be in the position where it's going to be the most advantageous for them to be successful.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Have they said this to Craig McRae?
Yeah, that's right.
Craig McRae's been on the sideline, I think, since he got the job. I mean, if he was upstairs, he'd be able to take off his puffer jacket.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
It's which, and again, I have to be honest, when I hear games are being played at 12 degrees Celsius and they're wearing those heavy coats like that, 12 degrees Celsius here that's shorts and t-shirt weather for me outside. That's shorts and t-shirt. That's upper 50s here in Fahrenheit. I mean, I'm shorts, and that's shorts and t-shirts for me. So not puffer jackets and the wool hats or that sort of thing. But that's just growing up where we get days in the wintertime where it's down to minus 15 degrees Celsius with 50-kilometer-hour winds and snow and that sort of thing. Yeah, so.
Yeah, toughen up. Yeah,
that's. I'll put a jacket on then. But yeah. So you're also doing. What is it that you're doing on the television channels in Adelaide and in Melbourne? Because you're doing that as well right now.
Yeah, so that's what's happening there is my episodes of Legends with Bevo, the past episodes that I've done.
Okay.
I've sent the links to them of those full episodes, and they're just putting the episodes up on Channel 44 Adelaide as a TV show, and also in C31 in Melbourne and Geelong. So it's effectively community television that's playing my episodes, which is unbelievable. And again, publicity, which doesn't cost me anything. I don't make any money out of it, but it's all publicity. And again, I still had people reaching out to me sometimes and saying, "Oh, I saw you on TV." And so it's kind of cool. You just never know who's going to be watching it, do you? Or listening or whatever it might be.
Right.
So
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's just it is a great, like you said, it's a great opportunity for you to repackage the work that you have done already. Yes, and hopefully get people noticing it a second time around.
Yes, exactly.
And this again could lead to you having a 12th job now, and a 13th.
Well, it'd be amazing to have it one day. The dream is to have it one day on like a 7 plus or 7 mate or one of those 9 life, one of those stations or whatever. So yeah, there's quite a few of those around. But it costs a heck of a lot of money. So, yeah, that's still a long way off. But you never know. Just got to keep plugging away, don't you? Like yourself.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to be on. There's a reason I don't put video on out, okay, other than just a little clip here and there. So, now I want to get into a little bit of a question here for you that this is kind of a little bit of an off the wall one. Are you familiar with the book Moby Dick?
I've heard of it, but haven't read it or seen the movie. No.
Well, Moby Dick was a huge white whale that was being chased by Captain Ahab. Okay, so the ship that Captain Ahab was in charge of was called the Pequod. Okay, the Pequod. So here's my question for you: if we can stay with this little analogy here, okay?
Yep.
So Legends with Bevo is the Pequod, okay?
Yep.
And you are the legendary Captain Ahab in Moby Dick. Now the book is based on 3 different whaling journeys, okay? I think it's in the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Indian Oceans, where he's out hunting, whaling, big ship with the sails and that sort of thing. In this little allegory here, okay? And he ultimately becomes enamored or obsessed with catching Moby Dick, which sounds like something your doctor would recommend you not catch, but in his case, he wanted to catch it, okay? Now,
Yeah.
spoiler alert, though, in reality, things don't end up well for the Pequod and for Captain Ahab. Okay, but in your case, it's going to end up well. So, in our allegory here, Captain Bevan has been working hard to capture not one, not two, but 3 white whales.
Right.
Who are the white whale interviews that you want to capture for your show that you've not been able to do yet?
Okay, good question. How realistic are you going to be here with this one?
I don't. Well, I will tell you that, you know, when I talked to Barry Cheatley, who played for the Roos for many years, and then was the marketing director for the Roos for like a quarter of a century. He's in his early 80s. I spoke to him for like 3 hours last fall, and when I got done talking to him, he told me, he said, "Let me know who you want to talk to next because I know them."
Oh,
yeah.
Wayne Carey.
I think if I mentioned that name, he would probably make that call.
Oh, that's amazing.
He probably would. And I don't know. I'd have to read up a lot more on Wayne Carey. I know he's been in the news a little bit lately here, but who are your 3 white whales? Whether they're real, okay, maybe you have some realistic ones, and maybe you have a pie in the sky one.
3. So here we go. One of them, my show at the moment is comedy and sport. But if I decided to have a music Legends of Bevo, let's say we had a music Legends of Bevo series.
Okay.
Dave Grohl for the Foo Fighters.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 2 sport people would be Michael Jordan and Usain Bolt.
Okay. That would be a very fast interview.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was bad. That was terrible.
Closely followed by Kelly Slater. I reckon he'd be pretty amazing.
That's not a name I'm familiar with.
Oh, the surfer. Okay.
Oh, I don't know anything about surfing.
Okay. He's an absolute legendary, one of the best surfers of all time, and an American surfer.
Okay. Yeah. Other than I tried to go snow skiing once, and it was an absolute disaster. I don't know if you've ever been snow skiing before.
I have. It's tough.
Okay. Well, you know the bunny, the little, what they call the bunny hill, which is the hill for starters.
Yeah.
And they have like a little tow rope that you can hold on to, and it'll pull you up the hill so you can come back down the hill. I almost hung myself with the tow rope trying to go up the hill. I never even made it up the hill before I said, "The hell with this," and took the skis off and just waited in the lodge for like 4 hours while my friends from my church group were all out there having a good time skiing. I couldn't do it. I'm never going to try it again. Surfing, I'm certainly not coordinated enough to do that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm not, never going to happen. But, I read an interview that you did recently with Radio Today. I think it was back in February, and it talked about how Australia, this per capita, listen to more podcasts than anybody else on the planet. That was amazing to hear that. Yeah.
They're very popular, that's for sure. Every man and the dog has one now. So when I started mine...
Yes, we do, don't we?
When I started mine 5 years ago, I never thought that there'd be as many as what there is now. And I guess it's a good and a bad thing. The bad thing is that there's a lot of people now that are high-profile people that are all starting podcasts. So it makes trying to get sponsors and trying to make money, as I'm sure you know yourself, a lot harder. Because now Wayne Carey's even got his own podcast, as we mentioned Wayne Carey before. And Jonathan Brown's got his own podcast. Warren Treadray's a part of a podcast. These are absolute legends. And so it's becoming very popular and tough for people like us that don't have that same profile, I guess.
Right. And one I've been listening to lately, and it's just started. It's only been 4 episodes right now, and they've been some great stories. Is Ricky Nixon's.
Yeah,
Ricky Nixon's called the Chicken Coop. It's been there, and I got a shout out on that one too, by the way.
Oh, there you go.
I did, but it's I love his story. He has insider stories that nobody else is going to have.
Yeah, that's right.
From having been, the agent that he was and such, and just, having his finger on the pulse in so many different ways that other people don't. That it is just, it's fascinating, to hear some of the stories that he's telling, and I love being able to make those connections there. So, now you also got to announce you're doing field hockey as well as announcing a marathon recently as well. So you have been doing, like I said, you're the busiest man in South Australia.
It's definitely busier people than me, trust me. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. My first marathon last week I was involved in terms of as an announcer, not running.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, it was really cool. Down in the beautiful McLaren Vale in South Australia. And if you come over to SA, Craig, I'll certainly have to take down there some of the best wine you have in the world, mate. But yeah, there was really good fun. Got there quite early in the morning. I think we started about 6:30 and finished about 1:30. So yeah, but no, it's a good experience. And gee whiz, it's kind of inspired me now to get out and try and do my own. There was a half marathon and a marathon the same day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to try and do a half now and then, maybe one day a marathon, but that's a long way off. But
Yeah.
I think the half's within reach. I've run 12 Ks before, so what's that, an extra 9 Ks on top of that? So it's doable, I reckon.
Okay, well, yeah, and you could maybe you could get, instead of getting paid, you could just get free admission and you could announce it while you're running.
that would be an interesting experience.
Take the little have the satellite pack hooked up to your hip, and you just run along. And hey, how's your pace going today? And you hold the mic out to them, and it would certainly be something new.
That would be very interesting.
Yeah,
and the hockey's actually, I'm doing some freelance writing for Hockey SA.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so not announcing as such.
But you still have to watch it in order to do the writing about it, though.
Yeah, that's right. Just doing match previews for the games,
right.
and had to do like a season preview as well, which is a lot of fun, but also interesting at the same time because they asked me to do my tips or where I thought the team's going to finish for this year, which is a bit of a stiff one because I didn't watch any of the games last year, of course, and so yeah, a lot of guessing involved, and hopefully I didn't offend anyone.
Yeah, did you just look at the ladder? Do they call it a ladder?
Yeah, looked at the ladder and also just
went,
took into consideration about some of the players they had coming in, players they had coming out, and just had to use my best judgment. But I had some really, really good feedback about that. So it's good to be involved with Hockey SA as well.
Now, I do want to ask you this because I know you had another gig this weekend that that most people don't know about. And I was going to ask you, did you actually get to speak to King Charles once you got hired to be the announcer at the coronation?
No, I didn't know, but
okay.
I'm delighted to be announced as the King of England.
Over here, I've seen plenty of memes that have popped up about 73-year-old man finally moves out of his house and gets his first job. I've seen plenty of those kinds of things showing up. But
that's good. I like that.
Yeah, it's yeah, I think in the U.S. there's maybe a slight there's a bit of a fascination with it because it was being talked about here as well on the device that we get our television through had a link to where you could watch, and it had a link that you could go right to watch the coronation. I didn't watch. I'm not. I will tell you though, I did go back this weekend and watch the South Park episode for the recent one where they made fun of Meghan Markle and her husband.
Oh, I have to watch that. That would be amazing.
It was. Are you familiar? You watch South Park at all?
I haven't for a while, but I love it though. It's great.
Well, they had an episode. They had an episode. It was called the. I think the episode was called the We Want Privacy Tour. So they were going around on all these different TV talk shows and such coming, the characters supposedly being the prince and Meghan Markle, we want our privacy, respect our privacy and such. Oh, they just absolutely vivisected them in this episode. And supposedly it really, really upset them, which I'm okay with that, I think. I mean, there may be some people that aren't, but I kind of got a kick out. I showed a little bit of it to my mom, who is 80, and she appreciated the humor in it. Didn't appreciate the language, but she appreciated some of the humor. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on the 19th license coming in Tasmania now? Are you pretty stoked about that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously, whether they're going to bring in a 20th team, and also whether we've got the talent in Australia to have a 19th team, because you've got a lot of serious talent within A-grade footballers like your Bonts and these sort of things, but it does drop off quite a bit, especially with the lists, how big they are these days. So yeah, that's been a question that's been raised a fair bit in the media recently, is do we have enough talent to be able to have a 19th team in Australia? So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting situation, exciting for Tasmania and very well deserved. Personally, though, and I might ruffle a few feathers, I think a team like North Melbourne or one of those Victorian teams that don't get that support, like your bigger clubs like your Carltons and Essendons and that do, would have been better off going to Tassie, and especially because they already play footy in Tasmania as it is, and they don't get the crowds at Etihad. With say if North Melbourne play the Gold Coast, you're just lucky to get 10,000 people there sometimes. So I think it would have been a better move to just basically merge the Kangaroos or with the Tasmanian team over there. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. And whether they're bringing a 20th team now, I don't know. Do they bring in a team from the Northern Territory or another? They talk maybe another Queensland team, another team in WA. So it's going to be an interesting few years to see what happens. Would you see the AFL? It makes sense to have a 20th team to have no bye, and then you've got your 20 teams to the gather round as well.
Right.
Rather than having one team miss out every year. So, what do you think about that?
Well, I've had some people mention that maybe the ACT should have its own team and just let and have the Giants stay in Sydney and just play all their games at Sydney. So but that might be the case. You mentioned WA. I kind of poked fun at Collingwood getting upset with the prison bar or the pier pilings is what I think they technically are. Jumpers there. I said, if because supposedly people had said that Norwood had put their hand up to be the 20th side to come in.
That's right.
Said, do they have to change their name to like the semi-fibrous horizontal plant life instead of wood, instead of mentioning wood in their name or something like that, and they're just to appease the magpies. It's
ridiculous, isn't it?
I don't know. As you were mentioning about Adelaide being a quote unquote small town, but it's still a big city. But in comparison to say Perth or Melbourne or Sydney, it is smaller. And maybe Perth, they've got a brand spanking new stadium. They're certainly not going to be putting another club in Victoria.
That's right.
They're not yet. Who in Victoria? If let's just say hypothetically, we're going to have another club come in and play their home games at the MCG or Marvel. Which fan base are they going to try to shave supporters off of by bringing in a VFL side to become that next club? Who's going to say, yep, I'm done supporting my team that I've supported, my club I've supported my entire life, to go support this other VFL club that's in my neighborhood? It's not going to happen. So that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But the Northern Territories, I think would be awesome, but you definitely would have to have an oval that had a roof on it of some sort. That would be more climate controlled.
Yes, I'd have to build a new stadium for sure.
Yeah. You would have to do that, but I could see WA certainly being an option. I think you could, but one thing I think we can all agree with is that James Sicily will never be playing for the club in Tasmania.
Yes.
I think we can safely say that. Yeah. It's
that was a pretty silly comment to make when you've got Tasmania on your Guernsey, wasn't it?
I need to look. I need to look here real quickly and see when Hawthorn goes back to Tasmania this year, because I think they play at least one more game down there this year, because they've only been there once.
While you're thinking of that, I want to ask you a question as well. There's been a lot of talk lately about booing in footy, and I understand. This is why I want to ask your opinion on it. I understand if a player, like say for example this weekend, Jason Horne-Francis does play against the Kangaroos, and if the Kangaroos fans boo him, that's fine because he's played previously with the club. I understand that. What I don't understand, and what I think is ridiculous, on the weekend we saw Buddy Franklin being booed by Collingwood supporters. He's never played for Collingwood before. Jason Horne-Francis getting booed by St Kilda last weekend, getting booed by Collingwood the other week. He's never played for those clubs.
Right.
Why boo players that never played for that club?
Yeah. Because I know that booing is in many cases, it's something that gets talked about and is somewhat frowned upon in the AFL circles. Now, it seems to be perfectly okay that when a player goes to take a kick from the right along the boundary there, up against the up against the stands. It seems to be perfectly acceptable for. And I'm gonna, you won't be able to see this if you're listening, but Bevo will laugh at it. It seems to be perfectly acceptable to sit there if it's an opposition kicker to go up, to do this and go up yours, but certainly don't boo them.
I know it makes no sense. And when there's players having a shot at goal, booing them, to when to put them off their shot or whatever, that's totally fine.
Right.
But that is completely different to actually, like I mentioned,
it didn't make sense to. Yeah.
No.
And
no reason.
Now I don't know if I don't know if the clubs that were booing Jason Horne-Francis were trying to be sophisticated enough that him compelling the trade to Port Adelaide did something that might have changed their draft status, which might have impacted a player they were hoping to get in their side. I don't think that was the thought process. I think it tends to be, kind of the one person that's doing it, and we're gonna, more and more of us are gonna all start doing it because the guy next to me is booing. I'm gonna boo as well. I guess you pay your money. You could, because here in the States we boo other, that it happens a lot more frequently. It does happen a lot more. It's we tend to not be quite that, maybe not quite as civilized, if you will, as footy fans. Which, by the way, Hawthorn does go back to Tasmania on the 21st of this month. So,
there you go.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
And that's against West Coast. So, fortunately for James Sicily, there may not be very many people in the stands to come watch Hawthorn and West Coast because this is actually, I think this is a game where they can actually a free wooden spoon for every fan in the stands at this game, because somebody's walking. Whoever doesn't win that game is winning a wooden spoon, I think.
Yeah, how the mighty have fallen, hey? Two teams that absolutely dominated the 90s.
Yeah.
And
I
to the 2000s. But
I think Hawthorn is going to be back quicker than West Coast right now, because West Coast has not started, because Hawthorn, it's like they were renovating in a house, and they tore the house down to the studs. They just left the frame of the house and are rebuilding the whole thing. West Coast is trying to renovate one room at a time while still living in the rest of the house. They've not started to say, we need to just, these walls are bowed and this roof is leaky here. They still say, oh, we can still live here. We'll put out a bucket for right now. We'll catch the water in it. They haven't made the decision. We just knock this shit down and start over again. They haven't done it yet. I think it's going to happen at the end of this year, though. It has after the last 2 years. I think it has to happen.
Yeah, there's some big changes for sure there.
Yeah,
so
I think it absolutely has to happen. So before we wrap up, go ahead.
Because I've got to go and jump and do an article, mate. So
couple things before we wrap up.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you just a couple quick things here. What have you improved upon as a podcaster or a broadcaster in the past year? What have you gotten better at?
Yeah, that's actually a question I haven't been asked much before. I suppose just coming up with questions that thinking outside the square a bit more as well, and asking questions that are a bit more interesting and showing that you've done your research and preparing more and things like that. Because so often, especially, I'll use Warren Treadway as an example. There's questions that asked him that he may not have ever been asked before. Questions, for example, about his childhood and being in a sporting family and things like that. Because most of the questions that he gets or got asked during his footy career about his footy, and it's all boring, same we've heard over and over again. By asking him questions about his childhood and growing up in a sporting family and what that was like, and the competitiveness of playing backyard footy and backyard cricket or whatever it was, backyard basketball, those sort of things. Like, I think people love to hear those stories, like getting real insight into people's lives that you don't normally hear when you listen to an everyday interview.
Okay, now 2 more short ones here before we wrap up, because I know you have to go here.
That's okay.
Do you feel as though you are on your way right now? Do you feel like you're on your way?
Still got a very long way to go, but I'm progressing. Yeah.
Okay.
I suppose the Port Adelaide gig shows me that I'm heading in the right direction, and by having my 2 shows now on, my Legends Bevo on 2 different TV stations, Channel 44 and Channel 31, shows that, again, I'm making progress, but still a very, very long way to go.
Okay, and I have a dad question for you for the final question.
Sure. Cool.
If you had to pick one, what is the most important value that you're going to teach your daughter? Honesty, kindness, or courage?
The kindness. Because
Okay.
I don't know about you, but I found that especially during the COVID times, people are a lot less kind these days. And take the road, for example. One of my most frustrating things is when you let people in and they don't give you a wave. It's common courtesy. It's not hard. And it just frustrates the heck out of me when you go out of your way to do the right thing and people just don't respond with a thank you. It's not hard. Just show some kindness in life, show some gratitude. It's not difficult. And yeah, so I'd love to see my daughter have the same thing, Evie, and have that real kind approach. So
well, I know that when I get there, I do plan on, like I said, doing some traveling in the countryside. So I do plan on renting a car, and I've only driven on the other side of the road one time, and that was in England in 1996. My wife spent a year going to college in Scotland, so she was going to do all the driving. We went on a delayed honeymoon. We went on our honeymoon like 10 months after we got married. And she was expecting our first child at the time, and she got very ill. She actually spent 3 days in hospital in England. But so I've never driven on the other side of the road. My wife is in hospital. We're staying with family friends of my sister from when she lived there when my brother-in-law was in the Air Force. So I'm trying to find this hospital at night in the rain, driving on the other side of the road, not having a clue where the hell I am. It was the most stressful thing I think I have ever done. So if I do find myself in Australia and I'm renting a car and I'm driving, I will be one waving son of a gun, because I'm going to be waving at everybody, thanking them. Say, I might even have with the rental car. When I might just have a rental car, and I might just have a bumper sticker that's printed up that says, "I'm an American. I don't know what the hell I'm doing with this. Okay, give me a wide berth." Okay, so yeah,
love that.
So yeah, well. So what's up next for you before we wrap up? Last thing, what's up next for you?
Yeah, well, actually, it's funny how life works again. I reached out recently I got an email from a PR company, and I thought I was going to get Ash Barty for Legends of Bevo, so I got really excited about that. But unfortunately, that one didn't work. That one didn't work out. But then it's that old phrase, isn't it? You win some, you lose some. Because then I got a LinkedIn request recently from Anthony Lehman, who's one of our best comedians here in Australia and been on TV for a number of years and radio and what have you here in Adelaide, and really, really nice guy. And actually sent him a message, and only heard just back today that he's keen to have a chat on the Comedy Legends of Bevo with me, which is wonderful.
Fantastic.
So
Fantastic.
Yeah, so it's just funny how it works sometimes, isn't it? You might miss out on one, but you've just got to keep plugging away. And it's the same with you, with your guests. And I say to anyone that's listening out there, just never be afraid to reach out to people, because you just don't know who you're going to get and who's going to be great and want to have a chat with you. So
spot on.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my guest has been Legends with Bevo host Bevan Jones. And Bevo, thanks so much for taking time. I know you got up sort of early today because somebody else was keeping you up. And, I wish you and your family all the best. It's great catching up with you again.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Craig, and vice versa with yourself, your wife, and your kids, and I really look forward to hopefully meeting one day in person, even though it feels like we know each other so well anyway.
It does. I'm shaking hands with you right now. There we go. Good deal. Well, cheers, man, and take it easy. Have a fantastic afternoon.
You too. Keep up the great work with your podcast too, mate.
Thanks. All right, Bevan, thanks for sitting down and chatting with me again, man. I know that your world is absolutely rocking, and you've got so many wonderful things happening for you. Fatherhood is terrific. I know you're so excited about that. I'm excited for you. Ladies and gentlemen, remember that you can find everything related to my podcast over at my website at yankonthefooty.com. You can subscribe to the mailing list. You can leave a review. You can sign up to be a guest on an upcoming episode if you would like to do that as well. If you want to help out the podcast, that review is certainly a big help, and I'm actually going to read one that was shared just today on my social media for me. If you want to help out the podcast financially, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee button, or you can head over to my Redbubble page where I have a bunch of different designs for the podcast and a couple of other ones. I put 2 new ones up this weekend, 2 new designs over on my Redbubble page. One of them I'm not really advertising because, quite frankly, it is going to, what's the term I want to use? It's going to piss off one entire fan base. I think one might just shake their head and go, yeah, we agree with you. 16 others are going to laugh their asses off. But I think one of them is not going to be happy with me. And I don't want to say which one. Okay? I don't want to say which one. But, like I said, I do hope that you'll get signed up on the mailing list. And I do want to go ahead and share that review with you that was posted earlier today. And it's not a terribly long one, but it was a 5-star review. And this was posted over on Apple Podcasts. And this is a very short review, but I'm very pleased by it. Said it's from a Dockers fan, and they didn't rub it in too much that they beat my Cats this weekend. Gobsmacked how good this podcast is. And guess what? Fremantle, well, Yallop this round beat Geelong. Seriously, love your Yankee view. Thank you. Shaz from Fremantle, Western Australia. And Shaz posted that on Apple Podcasts. So if you want to help out the podcast, you can certainly do that there. You can actually go to Apple Podcasts to leave a review right through my website as well. And if you enjoy the show and maybe you haven't listened to a lot of the interviews that I've done, there are close to 150 episodes of interviews that I have done with people from all aspects of the game of footy, from a club president to former athletes to agents to just people who are fans of the game. And I absolutely love talking to people about the game. Now, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, I do hope you'll get signed up on the mailing list. I hope you'll help out the podcast if you want to do that. You certainly don't have to, but I certainly would appreciate it. And everything that happens that way stays with the podcast as well. But ladies and gents, look out for one another. Check on your friends. Make sure they're okay. Tell them you love them. Get out and have that coffee. I know the weather's been a little bit chilly. In a couple places around Australia, I did see that Broome was down to 10 degrees Celsius today. My friend Orville up in Queensland said it was down to 0. And he was in 2 tracksuits, laying on the couch underneath a couple of blankets, watching the footy this weekend. Hopefully you've thawed out, Orville. We were up to 21 today, so a little bit toasty for me. If it could stay about 16, 17 degrees Celsius year-round, I would be an absolute happy camper. I would love that. I'd love that. But ladies and gents, I want to thank you again for the kind words and the support. And may your dribble kick never hit the post. I will catch you later. This has been episode 263 of A Yank on the Footy. Again, don't forget that you can reach me at yank_on or at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram at A Yank on the Footy or Facebook. Look for my name, Craig Wessels, or A Yank on the Footy podcast at yank_on and Twitter, which I just mentioned, or yankonthefooty@gmail.com. Ladies and gents, thanks for listening. I do hope you'll share the episode with your friends and family. And until next time, goodbye.